All right, we're on live stream now, and I would like to welcome everyone to the Appropriations Subcommittee, Transportation and Environment briefing with MDOT for the CTP. And while we all had our in-jurisdiction road shows this fall, and a big thanks to everyone within MDOT that worked to make that happen. I know that is a brutal time schedule for all of you. We want to thank you for that. So we all have had sort of the general overview. We know that there could be some things that have changed since then. We would like to have you give us your brief overview, hear about specifically anything that has changed, hear about the Key Bridge update. As you know, you can do that at the end or whenever you want to, and anything else that you think we need to know before we head into session. So with that, I will turn it over to Secretary Biddle.
Thank you so much, Chair Watson, Vice Chair Edelson, and members of the subcommittee. We really thank you all for bringing us together this morning for a great touch point post CTP tour, as you mentioned, and as we head into session. Delegate Edelson, I will just say that I hope that you are headed to BWI.
You know it.
That's terrific to hear. To kick us off, for the record, Samantha Biddle, Acting Secretary of the Maryland Department of Transportation. We will be providing an overview for you all this morning of the major projects and programs that have statewide impact and that are included in our draft Consolidated Transportation Program, more commonly known as the CTP. As the chair mentioned, thank you to so many of you for participating in the local meetings that occurred earlier this fall. Some of what you'll hear today may be similar to what we briefed on at that point in time. We're going to try to keep things tight, provide those updates, and certainly provide a thorough update on the status of the Key Bridge rebuild for everyone. And we'll certainly be able to answer any questions when we wrap up. We've got various members of the MDOT team today representing all modes, and really look forward to the dialogue. So in the department's draft CTP, MDOT is utilizing every dollar to make strategic investments in the Moore-Miller administration's transportation priorities. As you've heard from me before, those priorities are enhancing safety, maintaining our system, and driving economic growth across the state. So the draft CTP is an exciting follow-up to that productive legislative session that we had last year. And again, just want to thank on the record all of our General Assembly partners who worked with us through the governor's leadership and combined support from industry and so many other stakeholders to secure about $400 million in additional transportation revenue every year. And with these additional dollars, MDOT is stretching that funding by combining it, matching it with federal resources, financing options, turning the $400 million into almost $700 million in annual transportation funding. And what we all know is that without those additional resources, we would have seen sustained and deepened cuts in transportation. So the additional dollars are being used to take significant action to maintain our system and keep it in working order, to get those millions of Marylanders where they need to safely and reliably. And as we approach the final CTP, which will be out in January, we are evaluating closely the financial position of these new and existing revenue sources. As we know, the state continues to face economic and fiscal headwinds, and we would expect the final CTP to correspond very closely to the draft CTP, still with that focus on safety, state of good repair, and economic development. To take a moment to highlight safety, which we know is always our top priority, the department is serious about safety, and we know that's reflected in our draft CTP. We're continuing to push forward to expedite progress on all of the safety initiatives to bend the curve on serious injuries and fatalities on our system through policy changes and projects to improve those safety outcomes. Additionally, the department will pursue this session a series of bills to authorize the use of life-saving technologies in the state's most dangerous highway corridors, promote interjurisdictional speed enforcement with our regional partners, and ensure consistency in access to ignition interlock technology. So I look forward to the continued collaboration and partnership as we work through both the department's priority legislation and the General Assembly's. As the state considers how it can enhance transit and interconnectivity with local communities, it is critical that we review the highest and best uses for our transit sites. And this includes integration of community enhancements and commercial and residential opportunities at these sites. Our transit-oriented development, or TOD team, is progressing joint development opportunities at several sites throughout the state. Most notably, we have State Center in partnership with the Department of General Services, the metro stations at Rogers Avenue and Reisterstown Plaza, and MARC stations at Bowie State and Odenton. Notably, these MARC station developments have recently achieved very important milestones. I want to take a moment to celebrate those. We have an active solicitation underway at Bowie State, and a developer team partner was recently identified for the Odenton project. Furthermore, our team is advancing planning of TOD with local jurisdictional partners and WMATA through new TOD designations such as the Monocacy MARC Station in Frederick County and projects funded with the TOD Capital Grant and Loan Fund. Studies of TOD at MARC stations in Montgomery County and Prince George's County, funded by the Washington Suburban Transit Commission, and finally, advancement and development of activities at New Carrollton, Grosvenor, and Capitol Heights, to name just a few WMATA efforts. So a lot going on in the TOD space. If you look at where we were just a few years ago and where we are now, so many leaps and bounds, and really credit the team and the partnerships across all of these jurisdictions and other stakeholders to bring us to where we are today. I'm now going to turn the presentation over to the rest of the MDOT team for their brief updates. This morning, we will start with Administrator Arnold and the Maryland Transit Administration.
Thank you.
All right. Good morning. Thank you, Secretary Biddle. Good morning to Chair Watson, Vice Chair Edelson, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you so much for having us this morning. For the record, my name is Holly Arnold, Administrator at the Maryland Transit Administration. This year's draft CTP enables MTA to make needed investments to preserve and strengthen our transit system. Our new Metro subway cars are undergoing final system integration testing, and we're looking forward to having the first car in revenue service early next year. These new cars will provide riders with a smoother, more comfortable, and more reliable trip while enhancing the overall efficiency of our transit system. The draft CTP also supports funding for the light rail modernization program, a $1.4 billion project to replace the current light rail fleet with modern vehicles and upgrade our stations, systems, and maintenance facilities. This is the first significant investment in the light rail system in 30 years. For the Red Line in Baltimore City, our planning and design activities are continuing. And the draft CTP also dedicates resources for the design of enhancement projects along our MARC system, including our Penn Camden connector, the Silver Spring turnback, and expansion and modernization of our MARC train storage facilities. These projects will help us to improve system reliability and flexibility and position MARC for future expansion opportunities. Turning to the Purple Line, construction continues to advance. The project is now over 84% complete, nearly 85% complete. 65% of track is laid. All 21 stations are under construction, with overall station construction at 74%. You can even see the real-time signs turning on at some of the stations. It's a really exciting time down there. The Purple Line Small Business Grant Program, which is administered by MDOT, has awarded more than $1.5 million to 146 small businesses along the alignment, and will invest a total of $4 million over the next 4 years. And finally, we did receive all of our light rail vehicles at the Glen Ridge Operations and Maintenance Facility as of November 19th. Speaking of Prince George's County, for the Southern Maryland Rapid Transit Project in Prince George's and Charles counties, MTA is working closely with our state and local partners on the planning and environmental linkages, or the PEL study. Fieldwork within the public right-of-way started in mid-August, and this study will be used to collaboratively make critical planning decisions, as well as helping us to speed up the time that it takes to complete the National Environmental Policy, or the NEPA process. We are currently hosting a second series of public open houses for the study. We have an in-person event this evening in Waldorf and a virtual meeting planned for tomorrow. And we look forward to continuing partnership and building the future of transit in Maryland. I will now pass it to Will Pines at the State Highway Administration.
Well, good morning. And for the record, I'm Will Pines, Administrator of Maryland State Highway Administration. And today I'll be discussing the financial status of SHA's capital program, also providing updates on major capital investments across the state, as well as some of our critical safety-focused projects that are part of our system preservation program. As published in the draft CTP, SHA has nearly $7.5 billion in our capital program to support major capital and system preservation projects. And that includes major safety, accessibility, mobility projects, as well as minor safety and system preservation projects. Nearly $6.2 billion of that total is programmed for system preservation projects. And thanks to Governor Moore and the work of the Maryland General Assembly during the 2025 session, the department was able to secure additional funding to support continued investment in the state's critical transportation assets. For SHA, that means additional and continuous investment in safety and spot improvement projects. And the main funding bucket for that is our complete streets projects, statewide pavement and resurfacing, statewide bridge rehabilitation, and the state's stormwater management goals through our TMDL program. The additional funding also allowed SHA to fully fund critical major safety improvement projects across the state, such as US 15 Safety Mobility Project in Frederick County that's continuing through design and is expected to begin construction in summer of 2027. The I-81 Corridor Improvement Phase 2 project in Washington County is in design and anticipated to begin construction in spring of 2028. And the Maryland 97 Montgomery Hills Safety and Accessibility Project in Montgomery County is anticipated to go into construction in 2028 after we complete the project for Maryland 390, that those two dovetail right into each other. Sticking on major projects, SHA continues to advance through construction on two significant mobility projects. The I-695 Tismo project is under construction with the first segment of the hard shoulder opening in 2027, and we anticipate having it fully open and completed in 2028. The project will convert the median shoulder that exists today to a travel lane for peak hour traffic to use as a congestion relief measure and also to improve traffic flow. Maryland 4 Suitland Parkway, SHA's largest single project investment in the capital program, is a nearly $269 million project and is under construction and expected to be completed in 2028. Other major projects in the development and evaluation program are advancing through development, and they include the I-97 from Maryland 32 to I-695 Tismo improvements, which are currently in, that project's currently in the planning phase, and our US 1 Phase 2 and 3 safety and accessibility improvements in Prince George's County, and also the I-795 Dolefield Interchange in Baltimore County, which are both in their design phases. Turning to the system preservation program, SHA is poised to advance many projects through this program that are critical to our state's state of good repair needs and to improve safety. The funding in the draft FY26 through 2031 programmed safety and spot improvements for over $470 million, which is nearly $100 million more than was in the final CTP that was published in January of 2025. This bucket of funding will be used to advance safety improvement projects such as the work that's being done to construct new sidewalks, signals, and safety enhancements on US 1 at Dr. Patel and Rowanberry Drive in Howard County. However, it's also the main funding source as well for our pedestrian safety action plan. And as you probably know, that's our PSAT program. We also have our vulnerable road user program. Both of these are focused on delivering safety projects on corridors with the greatest safety needs throughout the state. These corridors are corridors with high VRU fatality rates, and each program is structured to deliver projects in a series of rounds. That is, that we're actively building a shelf of projects that are in various stages of project development so that as funding is available, they can be advanced and delivered quickly. This PSAT program was developed using a data-driven and analytical approach to identifying high-risk corridors of state highways across Maryland. And in total, we had 23 corridors that were identified as priority corridors. In the round one of the PSAT program, we started construction on Maryland 650 in Prince George's and Montgomery counties. SHA was able to move this project through development, procurement, and put shovels in the ground in record time. The project includes ADA compliant and improved pedestrian facilities, fencing to prevent mid-block crossings, upgraded traffic and pedestrian crossing signals, as well as new pavement markings, signage, and lighting. Other round one projects include a segment in US 1 in Howard County, Maryland 150 in Baltimore County. Both projects are currently in design with construction anticipated to begin in the spring of 2027, along with 3 other projects that are in our round one of our PSAT corridors. Round 2 of PSAT projects are also in the early design phases and include Maryland 193 in Montgomery County, Maryland 214 in Prince George's County, and US 40 in Harford County. Turning to that Vulnerable Road User Program that I mentioned earlier, SHA is required by Federal Highway Administration to conduct a vulnerable road user assessment as part of our Highway Safety Improvement Program. The first was published in 2023 and included as part of the Maryland Strategic Highway Safety Plan. The updated assessment is expected to be published with our ongoing updated Strategic Highway Safety Plan. The VRU assessment included over 100 identified locations, many overlapping those that were previously identified as PSAP corridors. And these are to address needs. We developed similar delivery structure by breaking out those projects into rounds, similar to what we did with our PSAP program. Our VRU projects are also going to seek to deliver complete streets focused type projects that are safety focused on improvements along high risk corridors. Each round includes roughly 6 corridors, but I'll just name a few here for brevity. Round 1 of our VRU projects are in design and include Maryland 542, Lock Raven Boulevard in Baltimore County, and Maryland 3 Business in Anne Arundel County. Round 2 of our VRU projects are in the planning phase and include locations like US 1 from Maryland 32 to Maryland 103 in Howard County, Maryland 157 from Merritt Boulevard to North Point Road in Baltimore County. Other complete streets focused projects and programs advancing include district safety projects like Maryland 224 in Montgomery County, Maryland 414 in Prince George's County, and several corridors in Baltimore County. We're also advancing mid-block crossing installations at various locations in Montgomery and Prince George's counties. And several MTA and WMATA bus stop ADA compliance upgrades are also actively advancing. Turning to some other system preservation categories, the draft CTP programmed additional funding into resurfacing and rehabilitation, bridge replacement and rehabilitation, and sidewalk construction and drainage projects. Turning to resurfacing, the draft 26 through 31 CTP allocates $1.4 billion to resurface many roads in the program over the next 6 years. While we know these investments will not address all of the statewide pavement needs, it is an over $290 million increase over what was included in the previous FY 25 through 30 budget. The draft CTP also allocates $1.3 billion to ensuring the state's roughly 2,500 bridges are well maintained and in a state of good repair. In March of 2025, our annual bridge report was submitted to Federal Highway and indicated that 20 bridges statewide are rated in poor condition. And that funding that we receive will help to support the advancement of design or construction for all of these structures. With this funding, SHA will be able to advance necessary bridge projects like the replacement of the Putty Hill Bridge over I-695 in Baltimore County, which is expected to begin construction in the spring of 2027. Sidewalk projects. Complementing the additional funding for complete streets efforts, SHA has over $230 million dedicated to new sidewalk construction and major sidewalk rehabilitation. This funding will ensure that SHA is able to support mobility and safety for pedestrians while enhancing connectivity and accessibility for the communities along our system. As you can see, SHA is leveraging every dollar provided to us to advance critical projects to enhance safety, accessibility, and mobility for all highway users, while ensuring we're good stewards of our transportation assets by keeping our assets in a state of good repair. We know that even with additional funding, we have more needs than available funding. However, SHA is committed to partnering with the Maryland General Assembly and thinking creatively, strategically, and leveraging all funding opportunities to advance projects. Now, I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today, and I'll now turn it over to my colleague at the Maryland Transportation Authority. Bruce.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Bruce Gartner, Executive Director of the MBTA. Really appreciate the support that we've gotten from the General Assembly and others as we advance the Key Bridge rebuild project. I'm going to focus today on that project and the Bay Bridge project, even though we do have significant work going on in system preservation on some of our other bridges and additional work along I-95. So since September 24, when we entered into that progressive design build contract, in 14 months, our team has been able to achieve progress on the Key Bridge design that typically takes projects about 7 years in projects of this scale. That Key Bridge rebuild has reached the stage of 70% design, and we were able to share last month with our board that updated cost range and the completion estimate for the project. So that cost range that we announced was $4.3 to $5.2 billion with an expected opening of late 2030 for traffic to be on the bridge. Those updated estimates are driven by both challenging market conditions and design features that really are in compliance with all federal standards for new bridges. They're not discretionary choices of the state, and I just want to talk about a few of them and be open to questions after the rest of the presentation. So robust peer protection has been highlighted for the bridge. That's a result of those AASHTO guidelines and looking at and getting the data on that when we went into design of the bridge. Very different than what we had to assume just 13 days after the bridge collapse when we were still dealing with the opening of the port channel there. So that robust peer protection is also another element is just the large width of the cable-stayed bridge that will have a higher vertical clearance and compliance with our Coast Guard permit. That's 230 feet as compared to the old bridge of 185 feet. That channel and a wider distance between the main spans does require a larger bridge. So that's another significant feature of the cost increase from the initial estimates. As we've done that design, we are still clearing the path for construction to start next year with an additional work. The team has made significant progress on the demolition of our test pile program that I think you've probably seen on different media outlets and our own social media. But that work and the demolition is well underway. We've seen large cranes out there in the river doing that test piles, and we are actually getting ready in the next week or so to install trestle that will help support the rest of the construction of the bridge. So all this work taking place as we finalize the design and do the final cost estimating the process with the design builder and our own general engineering consultants. So in terms of financial contributions at the state, I just want to touch on that, given all the attention to the bridge in recent weeks. But the state of Maryland continues to draw down on our insurance proceeds for all this work. We have over $350 million in insurance proceeds going into the project, and we will be advancing upfront construction costs at some point because the estimation for federal reimbursement it lags by about 12 months from when we think we will be expending funds over the life of this project. So significant contribution that the MDTA has to make. And as a result of that, we do see a need coming up in our revenue bond cap needing to go from $4 billion to $5 billion. So we are working on a legislative proposal for the upcoming session, and we'll be talking to you about that this session. That bond increase in MDTA's bond cap is needed to address these near-term financing needs specific to the Key Bridge reconstruction, and we look forward to more discussion about that. I also want to point out the Attorney General is leading the ongoing litigation against the Dolly and the vessel interests to ensure that those responsible for the loss of the Key Bridge pay for the cost to rebuild the bridge and compensate both the state and the federal government. It's very unique in the emergency relief program that you have a situation where that very good potential for contributions coming back to the federal government are part of an emergency relief project. I want to focus next on the traffic concerns in the region. Obviously, with the 2-year time frame that going from 2028 to 2030 and our estimate for opening the new bridge, we do have concerns, as the rest of the public does, about the traffic in the Baltimore region. That bridge did serve as a vital connection in the area, and the extra traffic has shifted to the tunnels that are causing the congestion and time delays, particularly in the southbound direction in the morning and the northbound direction in the evening. We have done some projects to help enhance the the movement of traffic and improve traffic flow, everything from enhanced pavement markings on I-95 to shifting travel lanes and travel plaza configurations on 895, and also doing some improvements to the gantries and our electronic tolling systems on 895. Moving to the Bay Bridge updates, both the Key Bridge and the Bay Bridge were part of the NTSD reports, and we have a project underway that we initiated in the spring of 24, and we did the evaluation for the Bay Bridge and what protection could be accomplished there. We hired a consulting firm, a national recognized firm, to do that bridge vessel collision design. That was a $600,000 effort. Now that is complete, we are moving forward and doing another project on pier protection. I just want to note that last session, you all did condition the release of about $500,000 from the Secretary's office on the submission of reports to the budget committees on the assessment and actions that can be taken to reduce the vessel collision vulnerability at our bridges. And that report was submitted to the legislature on December 1st. So while the Bay Bridge pier protection design and condition meets the requirements for our current federal bridge permits, we do have a design build contract in the works to go out this winter that will complete up to 16 dolphins that could be installed around the central span of both bridges. That actual completion will depend on what the proposers can accomplish with the dollar amount that we've set aside, or $170 million, as we're considering this a phase one improvement. So on October 20th, we did host an industry forum for this project and had representatives there to answer questions in advance of releasing the bid information later this winter. That forum also informed the stakeholders about that request and gave them the dollar amount that we were expecting. Subsequent project phases may be developed and are depending on funding availability, but we are doing this at the same time. We are studying the potential replacement of the existing Bay Bridge as part of that Tier 2 NEPA study for the Chesapeake Bay crossing. As such, we will ensure that it does not preclude future project to replace the existing spans. And we, on the Bay crossing study, we will be publishing a draft environmental impact statement later this year. And we'll be holding public hearings early next year, likely in February, that will provide public input at public hearings. So that will help inform the next stages for the Bay Bridge, and of course a new Bay Bridge, the two new spans that we're going to be talking about will have to be built with the new vessel protection standards in place. So thank you for your time, and I will now turn it over to my colleagues at I believe the Maryland Port Administration was next, but I might have that wrong.
Thank you. You are on mute, sir.
Well, thank you. Think after 4 years of pandemic and everything else, we'd have this. We know how to turn this on. Yeah, Bruce, thank you so much for passing it over. Thank you to you and to the work that you're doing with your team to progress the expedient replacement of the bridge span, which is so important to the port and to our economy. Chair Watson, Vice Chair Edelson, thank you so much and allowing us the opportunity, members of the committee, to talk to you a little bit this morning about where we stand. My name is Jonathan Daniels. I am the Executive Director of the Maryland Port Administration. As one of the oldest and busiest ports in the United States, the Port of Baltimore has a 300-year history of delivering economic prosperity through trade. It has grown significantly in just the last 20 years, repeatedly breaking cargo tonnage records and bolstering economic growth, positioning Maryland as a critical international gateway for our region as well as for our nation. For over 24 years, the MPA has implemented the Dredge Material Management Program, or DMMP, identifying long-term solutions for the sediment dredged annually from the shipping channels that connect global trade to the Port of Baltimore, while advancing environmental stewardship of Maryland's natural resources and enhancing our neighboring communities. Each year, the port partners with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to remove nearly 5 million cubic yards of dredged material from the channels, enough sediment to fill the M&T Bank Stadium twice annually. The importance of dredging cannot be overstated, and in short, it is the lifeline of the Port of Baltimore. Dredging makes it possible for some of the largest vessels in the world to do business in and through the state of Maryland, while the ongoing operation and maintenance of more than 130 miles of federal navigation channels drives long-term investment and business decisions for ocean carriers calling the Port of Baltimore. Simply stated, without our 50-foot deep channel, the Port of Baltimore would not be able to be competitive with other East Coast ports, leading to an inevitable loss of business and jobs. Key investments in projects like the near completion of the $518 million Howard Street Tunnel project, the construction of a $1 billion container terminal in Baltimore, and the hundreds of millions of dollars invested by both the state and private sector in the port rely directly on the long-term viability of a safe and navigable 50-foot channel. We must work together to ensure adequate funding for MPA's capital program and for the DMMP, and I would be happy to speak with each of you further regarding this critical matter. At this time, I would like to hand it over to the Maryland Aviation Administration, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be with you here this morning.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, and thank you, Madam Chair Watson and Co-Chair Edelson and members of the subcommittee for your time today. Certainly, I'm honored to be able to present to you all for the first time in my tenure, so thank you very much for that. So MAA's fiscal year 26 through 31 capital program totals $956 million, providing funding for BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport, Martin State Airport, and to support regional aviation activities across the state of Maryland. The program includes funding for critical state of good repair projects, including BWI Marshall Airport runway, taxiway, and apron, pavement rehabilitation, terminal roof replacements, and parking garage repairs. One such project is the runway 1028 and intersection pavement rehabilitation. This project will resurface the longest runway 1028 at BWI Marshall, as well as the intersection of runway 15 right, 33 left. If this intersection fails, the airport operations will cease. Rehabilitation is required to maintain safety, reliability, FAA compliance, and to avoid more costly emergency closures. The CTP also includes terminal modernization programs to improve the passenger experience and movement within the terminal complex, including to, but not limited to, passenger boarding bridge replacements, flight information display systems, elevators, escalators, moving walkways, and automated terminal doors. Our largest project, the AB Connector and Baggage Handling System program, is MA's largest capital program totaling over $500 million, which is near completion and will be constructed on time and within budget. This is the most transformation improvements to the customer experience that BWI Marshall has had in decades. The AB program comprises of a two-level building addition between concourses A and B to provide space for a newly fully inline baggage handling system, airline operational spaces, expanded homerooms, 5 new modern passenger boarding bridges, concession spaces, new restrooms, a direct connection between the concourses, additional bag claim and bag claim upgrades to our central utility plant, and lower level runway improvements. Since safety is our number one activity, no loss in incidents has occurred in the last 75 years, of which we are very proud. 75 days, excuse me. So the facility is expected to open to the public on January 9th after the completion ceremony on January 8th. The program also includes the new air traffic control tower at Martin State Airport. The current tower at Martin State is more than 80 years old. Work to begin the new tower started this summer. The next program that's also important to BWI is the replacement of the program that we have for our 70-year-old tower, which is undersized and outdated, and providing improved views of the airfield and surrounding spaces is very critical. This program, called the ACT-CD Connector Baggage Handling System, adds the final post security connector, allowing passengers full access to any gate from any security screening checkpoint, replaces aging infrastructure, consolidates our airport operations and emergency response centers, and provides space for tenants. Thank you very much for your time today, and now I'll turn it back to Acting Secretary Biddle.
Thank you so much to Executive Director Griffin and the entire team. Chair Watson, that does conclude our kind of formal prepared remarks, but we are happy to address and answer any questions that you or the subcommittee has for us. Thanks again.
Thank you. It's always amazing to me how much work MDOT is doing every day in between the times that we get to see you and hear updates. I will open the floor to questions from any of our members, and I have a few of my own, which I'll defer to other members at the moment. Unless you want me to go first, friends. Delegate Spiegel?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to everyone who presented today from the transportation leadership team from the state. We appreciate all your work so much. I did have the opportunity to hear some version of some of these presentations during the roadshow to my county, but it's good to follow up through the subcommittee on some of these items. I had a question that might be a little hyper-specific, so I would understand if the panel doesn't have a specific answer at the moment, but I just wanted to put it on your radar. And I'm not sure if it's for Executive Director Gardner or Administrator Pines, but we passed legislation in the last legislative session to authorize the use of speed camera enforcement on Maryland Route 200, the intercounty connector. And as I understand it, that legislation empowers SHA to work together with the Transportation Authority to make that happen. So that's why I'm not sure who the question should go to. But I just wanted to ask if there had been any progress on that. I'm not really sure if speed camera systems are considered more operational versus capital investment, but this has been a long-running concern in my county. And given the legislation that was passed, I'm just wondering if there's any update on the efforts to implement speed camera enforcement on that highway. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. I'll just start by saying I'm very appreciative of Administrator Pines and his team for leading the procurement effort that deals with both Maryland 200 and some of the highways on 695 and 83. So I'll let you go, Will.
Sure. Thank you, Bruce. And Delegate, thank you for your question. So as Bruce alluded to there, we last legislative session, there was the bill that passed for Maryland 200. And additionally, there was a bill that passed for Baltimore County that enabled cameras on I-83 and 695. And so we brought on board a consultant who's working with us now to develop the RFP to procure those fixed camera technologies. Previously, SHA only had enabling legislation to do work zone cameras, which probably most of you have seen the trucks that park behind the porta potties, and that type of system really isn't appropriate for the longer term usage on intercounty connectors. So that consultant is drafting the RFP and working on that. We have also, I'd give you a more specific timeline, but I'd like to follow up on that. The bill did have some impacts on how payments are processed with the judiciary. And so we've been working with the court system on some revamping of how payments will be processed as well. So that collaboration has taken a little bit of time. And so I'd like to follow up with you on the overall timeline on when we'll have the procurement completed and the payment process resolved with the courts.
Sure. Thank you very much. That's all from me, Madam Chair.
Okay, Delegate Mangiani.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think I saw my esteemed colleague from Baltimore City's hand up, so I hope he doesn't get upset with this.
Wait,
but Warren Road is, and I'm not sure who to direct this to, but the Warren Road Bridge is in my district, is a city-owned bridge that has a list of safety issues, and it's owned by the city DPW. And I obviously not part of the CTP here, but to the cities, actually, I'm very happy that they do have, I believe, plans in their capital improvement program to make improvements or to, I think, replace the entire bridge and their 25 to 30 plan. However, the construction was supposed to start, I think, in 2025 at some point, which obviously we're winding down the year, and still nothing's been done. And the list of safety issues with this bridge, I mean, it's pages long. So I guess my question is, are there requirements that must be met, I guess, for MDOT to either provide partial funding or oversight when a project like, for example, the Warren Road Bridge replacement, if it's not being completed or moved forward in a timely and safety, I guess, in a timely process to when safety is at such a high risk here.
So, Madam Secretary, I'll take that one if you're okay. So SHA, as part of our role in administering the federal aid program, we do have responsibilities for overseeing the local programs, including the local bridge program. Baltimore City and other local entities work with us to receive the federal aid when bridges are eligible. There are bridge structures that are off of the national highway system, and if the functional classification is low enough, they do not qualify for federal funding. And then state highway has no role in administering them typically. That being said, we do have a robust relationship with Baltimore City, and I meet pretty regularly myself with the director to talk about all of the programs, whether that's transportation alternatives, safe routes to schools, and the local bridge program. As part of our oversight responsibilities, we do make sure that the local governments are compliant with federal requirements. However, it is largely their responsibility to prioritize which projects they implement and the timing in which they deliver them. So we do encounter cases where local entities will function differently than the way that state highway would. You know, we may prioritize something faster or more critical than they would. And technically within the federal law related to bridges, you can even get a bridge from a condition standpoint to a point where it's allowed to close a structure if the condition and inspection findings merit that. So I'm not suggesting that that's the case here, but I'm letting you know that that just simply because a bridge condition is not is either poor or having issues does not necessarily mean that the city's only recourse would be to implement the project immediately. They do have other options there in their wider prioritization process. But I'm happy to follow up with our local bridge team and Baltimore City to see if there's anything that we can do to help assist them in advancing that project, recognizing the criticality to the delegation.
No, and I really appreciate that response and following up and coordinating with them. And to their credit, I mean, there's has to be a long laundry list of transportation projects that the city has to deal with. So a bridge in North Baltimore County is probably not their priority, but it's over 103 years old. I drive past there on a regular basis. My brother called me up, and he's not very political, but he's like, "What's going on with this bridge?" You can just look at it and see the corrosion. And just any help to try to move that process along for the safety of anybody, especially constituents of mine. And Delegate Guyton, a bipartisan from Democrat, and obviously me a Republican, trying to work together with our partners in the city to move this along. So thank you, Mr. Pines. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a good question. And I think it was good for all of us to hear how the state can get involved on the local level if necessary. I want to just, before I go to Delegate Solomon, say that this committee, the Appropriations Committee, the Senate, the governor, we all worked really hard to raise revenue last year to help the Transportation Trust Fund. And I received some figures from MDOT in October, which it shows that we really have moved the needle on state of good repair for both state highways and MTA. And while it's not where it needs to be, it's a lot better than it was a couple of years ago. And I think that's real progress for transportation system in Maryland. I'm going to ask one question and then move to Delegate Solomon. The Administrator Pines, can you give us an update on the federal funding reimbursement situation that was highlighted in a recent audit, or where we are with catching up on that?
Sure. Thank you, Chair, for the question. Appreciate that. So I think we had an early conversation about the process there. There was a lot of history behind that audit. And, State Highway has been working very closely with our federal partners to review all of the expenses for eligibility and to obtain full reimbursement for all eligible expenses on our projects that receive federal aid whenever possible. This is an issue that frankly goes back years now, and really is a legacy thing that kind of came out of COVID in us beginning to process a lot more federal funding. But since 2023, SHA has really been actively making strategic enhancements in our federal aid program to help improve those processes and systems. That includes everything from kind of dealing with the people side to add individuals to help on the federal aid team. We could still use help there. We did ask last session for some positions, and so that's an important need given the volume that we have to process in today's funding environment. We completed new project management and IT systems to help make our information more accessible across our team and to be able to process better. We've developed and launched some new internal reports that will help more proactively alert our team when projects need federal actions. And we've deployed federal aid checklists to help improve the quality of our submissions that will ultimately help to lead to more efficient processing. We've developed business rules and internal controls to help make sure that our submissions achieve those federal authorizations. We've launched information systems that help to automate the intake and streamline processes. In fact, we've got a project underway right now that is anticipated to be completed in the spring of 2026. And, the audit, our response to the audit did indicate that we do have a number of actions that are ongoing that are anticipated to be completed in 2026 to help us further deal with this. So we're going to continue to work diligently to implement additional standards and controls to enhance accountability and transparency around our reimbursement while supporting all of the necessary use of federal funds to support our transportation projects in Maryland. So, obviously, we want to use federal funds whenever possible. It's important to be able to move our program, and we have been successful with reimbursements. There is a backlog of transactions. This is a COVID thing that kind of grew over time as we use more federal money. We weren't tooled to be able to manage it, but we've put a lot of things in place already, and we're going to be doing more to continue to move that reimbursement funding quickly.
Okay, well, it sounds like you're trying to address the systemic problems that led to the issue. When we get to the beginning of January session, we're going to want a numbers update on financially, what does this look like? What do we really expect to be reimbursed? And what is our potential liability? So if you could just prepare for that coming in January. And Delegate Solomon, are you on the line still? Looks like he might have dropped off for a moment, so I'll ask, just talk about the Key Bridge briefly. So the most recent report out of MDTA is an additional 2 years and an additional several $billion. From what you said, Director Gartner, my understanding is that we will need to forward fund about 12 months worth of expenses. Is that what you are saying with the federal government?
Yes, I am. So to be clear, our financial forecast makes that assumption, the forecast that you'll be seeing during session. We do, however, have $217 million of emergency relief funds that are in SHA's federal funding pot. So initially, we are on a path for pretty immediate reimbursement, but that emergency relief program needs to be funded every year at a significant amount based on other things going across the country. So that is kind of the future assumption for future risk there.
Right. So when we get to January and session for you, it would be good for us to see sort of the timeline of how the money will actually work as we move this forward. Secretary Biddle, I'm sure you're working on that. I know that there were meetings with DC recently. So we'll be interested in following that process and what the state's liability is, for the entire next 4 years. The last thing I'll say about that is, I see Solomon is back, but the last thing I'll say about that is, in terms of the congestion, the 695 construction kind of exacerbates that congestion on that side of town. So is that ending soon, or will that be going on for the next 4 years as well? Or is there anything we can do to stagger that so we can free up the 695 corridor for some of that traffic?
Administrator Pines, can you give a little bit of an update on the 695 Tismo project? I do want to thank his team for their kind of creative thought working with our contractor on this one. Certainly, we know that the corridor's been under construction for some time, but one of the strategies that Administrator Pines can elaborate on is an effort to build some phasing into the project to try to minimize the construction disturbance in individual areas and bring those online as they're completed. But he can talk a little bit in more detail about the specific timing.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Secretary. And we did just about a month ago, maybe, Chair, provide a full briefing to the Baltimore County delegation on the project with the obvious understanding that with the Key Bridge disruptions, that update needs to be provided to their constituents. Related to the Key Bridge, I'm going to talk top line about SHA as a whole. We've been working hand in glove with Bruce on providing congestion relief measures throughout the network. We went through and made some signal timing and synchronization updates to help flow in all of the network corridors around the Key Bridge. We've been working closely with University of Maryland to actually do network level analysis of the entire region to be able to try to optimize traffic flow wherever possible. We've also deployed additional chart vehicles to the region to be able to help remove any incidents that occur to help prevent those secondary crashes from developing and further delays from happening along the network area. So we've done some of the big picture things to deal with traffic, but specifically related to the 695 Tismo project, as Madam Secretary was mentioning, we originally had advertised that project with a planned completion that was going to be in 2024. Unfortunately, with the crash that occurred where 6 workers lost their lives, we took a step back and frankly had workers who were afraid to go back to work, devastated from the circumstances that they were put in. So working with our contractor, we went back to the drawing board and redesigned the work zone standards through those corridor limits to be able to get them back to work. That really did involve a complete redesign of the project and resequencing of this construction. In the briefing that I provided, I gave some before and after pictures to really articulate what that meant. But in short, previously we had some shoulder areas that were open. We've taken those areas today to create better buffer areas for our workers to keep them safe during construction. But one of the asks that we put on the contractor was, we've already impacted the public from the original construction timeframe plus the redesign period. How do we accelerate this, especially in light of the Key Bridge? And so our plan originally was to open the hard shoulder running in that median area with the Tismo solution all in one shot. The project is over 17 miles on the inner loop and outer loop. So a lot of improvement length, and we were going to do that all in one grand opening. Rather than doing that, we've resequenced the project to allow for that to open up in phases. And particularly on the west side of the Beltway, where there's a lot of congestion today, the resequencing will open in that area first and provide some relief to that region. But the second phase of the project will open up the remaining segment in 2028. There is a project portal page that provides a lot more detail on that. It actually has a graphic of the limits of what will open in 27 and what will open in 28. So I really encourage all of your constituents to go to that page get
Can
more
you
detail.
make sure that you send that out to us, or you have someone send that out to us, that portal? I think that'd be very helpful for our committee. And Delegate Solomon, it's your turn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Apologies. In the garage, lost signal, and the switch to the laptop. I want to thank you all. Appreciate the detail and also just really appreciate the incredible amount of time that many of you spent with us in Montgomery County on the roadshow earlier. I have two questions, and in the interest of time, I'll just ask them both. One for you, Administrator Pines, and one for you, Administrator Arnold. And I did want to ask, or just maybe put a bug in the ear of Administrator Griffin. I know there had been a mention of a velo during the roadshow conversation and the issues there at BWI. I know many of us are interested in that, so would appreciate if there was follow-up. I know there was a commitment for follow-up. If there's additional information available, I think many of us on the committee would like to see that as well, in addition to the folks who raised it at the CTP event in Montgomery County. But on the two questions, Administrator Pines, again, thank you for your team's partnership on the issues in our community where we've had a number of deaths on our roadway. So we're excited to have the community town hall next week to talk about University Boulevard. But I wanted to ask you specifically, there was a request for information that the Federal Highway Administration put out sort of as a footnote yesterday on the Beltway 270 American Legion Bridge plan. So I'd be curious if you could share some details. I got a chance to read through that very briefly, but would be interested to hear what conversations you've had with FHWA from the state side and where you anticipate, once they get their comments back, next steps on that. And then Administrator Arnold, I know we rented or leased, I guess, a handful of rail cars from Mark out to SEPTA for them to deal with some of the regional rail issues. It's not a ton of money that we're getting in. I think it's, 2 or 3 million over the course of the agreement, but would be interested to know if there's an opportunity for us to take that money back and reinvest it into the MARC system and maybe advance some of the planning elements for some of the larger items on the MARC system agenda. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Secretary, I can take the RFI question if you like, or anything you want to comment there first.
No, certainly. I'll kick off, and thank you, Delegate Solomon, for the question. So we've had really productive conversations with Federal Highway Administration all throughout this kind of past year and transitionary period. That said, yesterday's RFI does present us with what we hope is an opportunity to gain information, about how industry is viewing this project. We are still reviewing the document and do see where it focuses really on the full scope of work that was identified in the record of decision. And as you're well aware, our approach and our focus has really been on the structure of the American Legion Bridge itself from a replacement perspective, as well as the southern section up to the spur. So we're going to have to think through, how any responses from industry come back to us and make sure that those responses are taking into account how we would actually be looking to phase a project there into the future. A lot of questions, a lot of unknowns, but we are hopeful to be able to move forward in partnership. I had the opportunity to meet directly with newly appointed Federal Highway Administrator Sean McMaster just a few weeks ago. We had productive conversations about how we do truly want to partner on both the advancement of the Key Bridge rebuild and on the American Legion Bridge, along with many other safety initiatives, freight initiatives, and just bringing more partnership to the program that we're looking to deliver. So optimistic there, but still digesting a little bit the news from yesterday, and certainly look to continue those conversations with our federal partners. But at the project level, Administrator Pines, anything from your perspective and your team, certainly welcome that insight as well. Thank you.
I think you pretty much covered it all. We're still digesting it. It was just yesterday, and it's a fairly lengthy document. Top line, our quick cursory read is, as the Secretary mentioned, it's largely focused on the original study, re-engaging industry and the public on the project. And so possibly an opportunity there to learn through the RFI, but we do want to digest any potential concerns, making sure that the RFI is reflective of the commitments that were made in NEPA and it's understanding the realities of the project.
I was gonna say, I think once you all have had more of a chance to digest it, maybe early in the new year, we could have a follow-up conversation, given how important it is to my community and to the county. Would appreciate just additional thoughts and insights once you all have a chance to sort of fully understand what's in there.
No, absolutely, sir. And do want to make clear that we'll be doing some additional outreach even, this week as well, just to make sure that folks remain aware of, where we are with our view of the project. Our view of the priority section, our view of where we want to start first has remained the same. So we're looking to make sure that we get the most information out of this as possible. We would also love any type of update on our pending discretionary grant requests to the federal government. We believe that that is an important part of advancing a project here as well. But we will definitely be in touch further to keep everyone informed. Turn it to Administrator Arnold next for a response. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Secretary. And yeah, thank you for your question, Delegate, and your continued support of Mark. We do really appreciate that. So I did want to note we are leasing. It's our single level Mark II rail cars that we have more than we use for daily service to SEPTA. So it was an opportunity for us to help a fellow railroad up the road, as well as bring in some revenue. It ends up being right about $2.7 million per year. The money does come back into the Transportation Trust Fund, so it can be reinvested in transportation projects, including transit projects. And I did want to highlight some of the investments that we're making right now in Mark. First, on the construction side, we are awarded the construction contract and are moving forward with our Martin State Airport project. So we're adding storage capacity there, which will help to get some of our train sets out of Penn Station and relieve congestion at Penn Station. And since it's all tied together, like the more congestion that we can relieve at these different areas, it helps to improve service really across all three lines. We are also moving forward with design on the Silver Spring Turnback. That's a project that I'm really excited about. I think it opens up the opportunity for us to drastically increase service on the Brunswick line. We've got a great partner there with CSX, and we're actively advancing that right now. We're also moving forward with the Penn Camden connector, allowing us to make a connection in the Baltimore area between the Penn line and the Camden line. Primarily, it will help us with better maintenance and storage so that we don't have to take every train down to DC and bring it back up for maintenance, which again helps with that kind of congestion on the railroad on both lines. So that is actively moving forward right now in design. And real estate, we did, our team is moving forward with right-of-way acquisition there. And then finally, I did want to highlight locomotives. A lot of the equipment issues that we're having right now are due to aging locomotives. So we're moving forward with our overhaul of our GP36 locomotives, and that's moving quickly now. So we're going to start getting those back in, which we should see reliability improvements soon. And we are also in active talks right now with another commuter railroad along the Northeast Corridor for electric and dual mode locomotives, so that we can kind of form a consortium to purchase those. So there's a lot of movement happening on the Mark side, which will help us deliver on the Mark growth and transformation plan, as well as just improve the reliability of the overall service.
Okay, Delegate Solomon, that answers your question. And we have one last question, which I'm going to, unless I'm going to ask Delegate Spiegel to ask it on behalf of another delegate who is struggling to stay on with connectivity at the airport. So, Delegate Spiegel, you have the last question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to try to channel my inner Mark Edelson. I know Delegate Edelson is working his way through BWI Airport right now, but I wanted to ask on his behalf about the Baltimore Red Line, and particularly the status of the study of the mode options for the Red Line project and where that stands.
Certainly, I can kick off and then hand it over to Administrator Arnold. Thanks for the question. We had our Baltimore City CTP tour right at the start of the tour this season. And what we heard at that point in time was that there's tremendous support for two things, well, many things, but the two things I think that we heard the loudest and clearest were there's support for East-West transit. And we had some requests from different stakeholders asking us to kind of make sure that we're fully evaluating all options, especially given the federal headwinds headwinds that we are facing right now. And so those comments have really come to us at the project level, and we're thinking through what the best next steps are for the project. We also want to acknowledge the work of the MTA in developing a robust and positive Be More Bus plan that highlights really a great future for bus service connectivity and reliability in the Baltimore system. And so we want to make sure that whatever we're putting forth balances the needs of both east-west connectivity and our system more broadly. But I'll allow Administrator Arnold to talk a little bit more about where our project thinking is right now. And certainly as soon as we have additional updates, we'll make sure to bring them to the committee and to all stakeholders. We know that this is an important project to move forward.
Yeah, thank you, Secretary. I think you covered it very well. I'll add our team is really, we understand the importance of this project and the east-west connectivity, and we're doing everything we can to continue to move it forward and advance it. We're, thinking creatively with different options and making sure that we kind of keep everything open. The other thing that we're doing is FTA and the Capital Investment Grant Program announced some ratings recently for different projects. And so we are taking a look at how they are rating existing projects, because that helps us to inform our decisions. So we are committed to this project and making it happen and doing everything that we possibly can to move it forward.
Great. And maybe during session, we'll have some more news or information about how when we're going to know more about that. I want to thank everyone for being on here. And just because we didn't ask any airport questions or port questions or MVA questions doesn't mean that we won't have questions for you in January. But we appreciate your time, and we wish you the best for the rest of this year. And I'm going to let Secretary Biddle close us out.
Thank you so much, Chair. You did part of what I wanted to do. It was my oversight at the top to not acknowledge Administrator Neiser for being on the call this morning. Typically does not have the type of capital program that we talk about, but it would not feel right to have a CTP conversation without acknowledging her and the tremendous work of her team. She is certainly the rock star as we go around the state, hearing everyone's positive experiences at the MBA. So I wanted to make sure to acknowledge her and thank her for spending time here with us this morning. And certainly, if you ever have capital questions about the work that she's doing to make sure that the facility side of the MBA is functioning, please know that she and her team are doing an amazing job on that front as well. But do just want to thank you all for the time this morning. This has been a really helpful conversation for us as we prepare for coming back before you in legislative session for both the discussion of our budgets and many of our legislative proposals, initiatives, and goals. We look forward to that partnership and just hope that everyone has a safe and happy holiday season.
Thank you. And thank you for closing us out, everyone. And we will see